Good morning, everybody. Hello, or good afternoon, I should say. Welcome to the show. I'm Darnell Cox. I'm a 56-year-old gerontologist and healthy aging coach. And today I have a special guest. I have Leslie Kenny, who is a longevity expert and founder of Oxford Healthspan, who makes Primeadine. So I'll let you guys start coming on. Hi, Leslie. Okay, I'm going to ask you on right now. Hold on one second. You should have just gotten an invite. Oh, we have an amazing show today. How to slow aging and reverse gray hair. Oh my gosh, you are speaking my language.
Lovely to see you and to see all of your lovely followers here today too.
So nice for you to be on. Okay, so Leslie, give me a little bit of your background in terms of your health journey that brought you to this point, because it's a fascinating story.
So the short story is that at age 39, almost 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune conditions, and I was told that I had 5 years left to live. One of those autoimmune conditions, lupus, had no treatment or cure. And that is probably why the doctor told me this. But it was a permission slip to try a lot of other things. And it was through experimentation, basically early biohacking, that I discovered something called intravenous immunoglobulin. And I used that along with a massive change in my diet and lifestyle to reduce inflammation. Those two things together meant that within 6 months, I had reversed all of my conditions.
Wow.
So today I am just a few weeks shy of my 59th birthday, and I have taken a Glycanage biological age test, which is a marker of inflammation, which is really the thing that bothers me most or concerns me most. And my biological age is 21. So my message is for anybody out there who's thinking, it's not possible for me, it's too late, I'm over 50, I'm over 60, what can be done? My message is clear. Your body always wants to go back to the point of least resistance, that point of balance and homeostasis.
Yeah.
And once you give it the conditions to return to that state, the body actually knows what it needs to do to fix you from the inside out. And I know you want to talk about gray hair, but gray hair is just, it's like the dashboard to what is going on inside of your body.
100%. And I get a lot of people that come in here they want to look younger, right?
Yeah.
And once I get my hands on them, I help them live longer and look better while doing
Exactly.
it. So, it's the outsides is often, like you said, an expression of what is happening internally with us. Okay. Yeah. So once you fixed yourself, how did you come across spermidine, and how does that help with autophagy and with the gray hair? Give me all the scoop.
The short story is that I moved to Oxford, England, which has a rather famous university, and I began to meet a lot of scientists. Now, my background isn't science, but as a patient, I'm deeply interested in how to use the science to get better. And I would consistently meet scientists who are working on what I thought was groundbreaking science. And when I would say, that sounds amazing, you're using pulsed electromagnetic stimulation for the brain to reduce depression. Great. I have somebody who could use that. And they would say, no, you don't understand. I just do research. I don't want to make a product. But I'm a business person. And I thought, hey, I'll just raise my hand. If you don't like asking for money and you don't like running a business, why don't I just do that for you? And it was through that process, and I only worked with regenerative medicine companies. These tend to be more of the orphans. The pharmaceutical companies tend to like companies that have patents for drugs that are more subscription type products where you have to take them every month to manage your condition. They aren't targeting the root cause, which I know you're into. They're just about keeping you ticking along enough that you can continue subscribing. And I want to get to the root cause. So I looked at the regenerative medicine companies, and somebody said, hey, there's something going over in rheumatology. You're a former rheumatoid arthritis patient. Maybe you'd like to know about this molecule. It's a terribly named molecule. It's called spermidine.
Terribly named. Honestly, I haven't spoke to my followers about this yet, because it's like, okay, how do we get past the fact that it's not derived from sperm, but it's heavily in sperm, and it is spermidine. It's a
So
what?
it is in all plants, it is in all mammals. Women make it in copious quantities in breast milk. Yes, it is in semen because you need it in sperm, but all of these things, what they have in common, and in plants, it's in the endosperm of the seed. What these things have in common is that you need this for the success of the next generation. They are absolutely fundamental to the survival of each of these species. Whether you're a plant, you're a human, you need spermidine because it helps with cell growth,
Right.
but it also activates something called autophagy, which is cell renewal. It's just a fancy Greek word that means self-eating, and it's the oven cleaning setting for your cells. And certain cells, like our heart cells, our cardiomyocytes, they actually don't replace themselves very frequently. So when we're 25, only 1% of those cells replace every year. That means that we have...
Wait, back up. After the age of 25, only one...
age 25. At age 25, only 1% replace. By age 50, only 0.5% replace every year.
Wow.
So these are little vintage cars, right? And I think I was born in 1965, so I think I've got a heart full of 65 Mustangs here, and I need to keep them polished and maintained, have the oil changed perfectly in order to keep them functioning when I'm 100.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is with autophagy. That is the main way to do it.
It's so funny you say that, because I have spoken at length about autophagy when it comes to fasting, because I've been doing intermittent fasting for 30 plus years. I'm 56. So that's
you look amazing.
Oh, and as do you at almost 59. So, there is a lot of power in deprivation and our bodies, picking apart those damaged proteins. I kind of think of it as like a used car part. You said you've got these, 65-year-old, or this, your Mustangs in your heart from 1965. But it is, in times of deprivation, and autophagy is what happens when we're picking apart those damaged proteins for their good parts and getting rid of the rest, right?
Absolutely.
So how does this help? How does spermidine help us to do that?
So spermidine is one of those few molecules that's capable of activating autophagy. So yes, you can do it with fasting, and you can also activate autophagy with things like heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins, so hot and cold therapy, saunas and cold plunges, right? And I know you do these things.
Every day.
So that's called hormesis, and that's a shock to the system. Now, not everybody is capable of doing the fasting or of exposing themselves to to saunas or to cold plunges, because their bodies are simply not strong enough to deal with that. So for instance, if you are a hypothyroid patient, which I am because my autoimmune conditions unfortunately destroyed most of my thyroid gland, if you are a hypothyroid patient and you begin to fast, your body says, wait a second, this is a famine, and I need to downregulate T3, which is the bioactive thyroid hormone. I'm going to block the receptors for that with something called reverse T3 so that I don't burn calories anymore. I hang on to my fat. I hang on to weight because we're going into a famine. This is like hibernation, and you want that winter fat to stay there. That's why some people who do fasting find that their metabolism downshifts, right? So for those individuals, something like spermidine getting it in their diet from lots of plants or getting it in a food-derived supplement like the one that I make is a great solution. Another example would be, say, your 90-year-old mother who is very, very slender, who doesn't have a lot of muscle. And I know you as a gerontologist, you advise your clients they need to build muscle as they get older, right? So that they're not prone to falls. Frailty is such a big predictor of mortality.
Well, not only that, but like the more muscle mass you have, the better your metabolism is, because muscles are like calorie burning machines. It takes a lot more calories to maintain muscle. Fat's very easy to maintain.
Yeah. And of course, muscle also emits myokines, which are anti-inflammatory. So muscle is good, but when you begin to fast, and if you're very slender, which my mother, who's 84, is very, very slender, if she were to fast, the first thing that would go would be her muscle, and she doesn't have any reserve left. So for these individuals who are prone to sarcopenia, which is muscle wastage, doing something like increasing the amount of spermidine they get in their diet, so they get that cellular renewal and recycling going, but they're not going to eat into their muscle, is actually really important. So this is how spermidine does it in a way that doesn't downregulate your metabolism, doesn't cause you to lose your muscle.
Yeah, interesting. In our mid-30s, for those of you who don't know, like I'm big about muscles are made in the gym. They're not necessarily made in the kitchen. And excess protein also gets stored as fat. So don't get me on the high protein diet fad we're on. But people don't understand that we start losing muscle mass in our mid-30s. And
yeah, it happens early.
It happens early. And that's when your metabolism can go down. And if you're not changing the way that you're exercising, then you can look at frailty when you get older. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens when we lose muscle mass. Okay, so tell me, how does this relate to the graying of the hair? Okay. Or the reversal of the graying of the hair?
So spermidine it has what we call pleiotropic effects. So it has a multitude of benefits. And so before I get into the gray hair, I'm just going to say that scientists believe there are 12 pathways down which we age. Some of them you'll know: stem cell dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction, shortening of telomeres, the end caps on our chromosomes, inflammation, gut dysbiosis, impaired autophagy is one of them as well. But of these 12 hallmarks, we know that spermidine inhibits a minimum of 9 of them, and very possibly all 12. We're waiting for the evidence with the final 3, but it looks very promising.
Give me the 9. Give me the 9. How? Because yes, we're going to talk about the gray hair. By the way, I don't have gray hair yet.
Bravo! Well done.
Yeah, and I know
because you take care of yourself.
Yes. That is true. And so, like we said before, your outsides are a reflection of the health inside. But I have friends that have gone gray really, really early, like mid-20s, early 30s. Like, what is this an indication of? Is this a genetic component, or are they somehow lacking something that is causing them to gray early?
I've spoken to, at this point, thousands of people just through my YouTube channel, Leslie's New Prime, on this very subject. I would say that in very rare cases, is there a genetic component? What there usually is a vitamin or mineral or antioxidant or hormone deficiency. So if we're talking vitamins and minerals, let's talk about iron, copper, vitamin D. People don't think that vitamin D is associated with gray hair, but in fact it is. Now, the vast majority of Americans spend 90% of their day inside. When they go outside, they put on the SPF. I have nothing against SPF. I mean, use it wisely, but go out in the sun when the UV index is low, and try to get that sun callus built up. And maybe use something like astaxanthin instead, that doesn't inhibit the production of vitamin D in the skin, because it's so crucial. When I was a kid, and I'm sure when you were a kid too, I used to stay outside till till really dark. I was playing, right? Kids don't play anymore except on their devices.
Yeah, I grew up,
and so they're not getting vitamin D.
I grew up on a small farm, Leslie, and it was like, get outside.
Yeah.
My mom would be like, get outside, and we wouldn't come in until like it was dinner time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I grew up. So I was getting loads of vitamin D. I grew up in Northern and Southern California, lots of sun. But kids today don't. So I was shocked by the number of young people who are writing to me saying, I'm 14 and I've got gray hair, or I'm 18 and I've got gray hair. And I said, this is crazy. What's going on? So vitamin D for them, I think, is a big one. We have a lot of young people who are vegan. Well, if you're vegan, guess what? You are not going to get vitamin B12, which is implicated in premature gray hair. The other thing that I've noticed is that young people are on Roaccutane. Now, one of the side effects of Roaccutane, if you think about the fact that it is drying out the skin, guess what? Guess what is here? Your skin is there.
That's why I always tell people when you're experiencing hair loss, you want to go to a dermatologist because the hair follicle is part of this. It's part of the
It
skin.
is. It is absolutely 100%. So, yes, people want to go to a trichologist, dermatologist, but this is skin. So one of the side effects of Roaccutane that occurs in about 13% of all people who take it is that the hair follicle moves from the anagen or growth phase to the telogen phase, which is where it sheds. And if your hair follicle is not in the anagen or growth phase, it will not produce pigment. So these in particular young men who were so self-conscious about their acne were then writing to me saying, I'm losing my hair, I'm getting gray hair. I mean, talk about a knock to your self-confidence.
Yeah.
So everything goes back to first principles. You've got to start looking at what is causing the acne in the first place. Stop just putting bandages which cause more side effects on top.
Yeah.
Get to the root cause, figure out what that is, and then probably balance of hormones, better diet, right? It's usually one of these things. So these were some of the things that I was seeing. As we get older, thyroid hormone is highly implicated in premature gray hair. There are a number of studies with photos where you actually can see people who have been given thyroid hormone and the hair color returns, which is interesting. So yeah, so thyroid hormone is one of those things. We often think with hormone replacement that we should be doing estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. But in fact, thyroid hormone is absolutely vital to our get up and go. If you don't have enough, you might feel brain fog. You get those cold hands and feet.
Yep.
Metabolism is very low. You can't shift that, that muffin top that you get post menopause or in perimenopause. So I would have people take a look at that. And then because we're all exposed to so much stress, I watched your IG Live with David Stewart over at Aegis, and you were talking about stress. It is implicated in so many illnesses today.
Yeah.
And one of those is actually premature gray hair. So when you are in that fight, flight, freeze moment, your body produces adrenaline. So you can run away from whatever that perceived threat, the tiger, your boss is. That adrenaline is still
the boss.
The tiger or the boss. The modern tiger is the boss who is, writing you hard and saying, you've got to deliver now. And the problem is that when you raise adrenaline for too long, it's very bad for the heart. So the body says, in its wisdom, I'm going to convert this into something that is less bad. That less bad thing is hydrogen peroxide. And your body then has all this hydrogen peroxide. That is better than too much adrenaline. Yeah. You can then, if you have a strong liver, use one of the 3 antioxidants in the liver, which would be glutathione, superoxide dismutase, that's SOD, or catalase. Any of those 3 could potentially neutralize the hydrogen peroxide and turn it into harmless water. But as we get older, as we drink a lot, as we smoke, perhaps we do drugs, guess what? The liver is overburdened and it no longer has enough of those antioxidants to convert that hydrogen peroxide into water, and we get bleaching from the inside out. So
This is just another way, folks, of like just another evidence that alcohol's not good for us. It can cause premature graying of the hair.
yes,
I did a full live show on the truth about
I saw
alcohol. I've
that.
also done a full live show on stress reduction. I mean, everything is so connected with
Yeah.
our human body. But yeah, you need a fully functioning liver to not have gray hair.
Yeah. And you know, you think about our ultra processed diet, something like certainly here in the UK, over 50% of the entire population is eating ultra processed foods every single day. Well, a lot of sugar is in there. Guess what? All that sugar and carbs leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So again, you're burdening the liver and it cannot do its job properly. So all of these people who are coming to me saying, I've got gray hair, I'm so young, I don't know why, I have to unpick what is going on in their lifestyle. Yeah. And it is invariably one of these things. Now, gray hair can also be an indication of something more serious like cardiovascular disease. And I recently did a YouTube video about a question I had from a young woman. She was only about 22 who suddenly got premature gray hair. And after going through all of the lifestyle factors, you know, checking her blood test results, everything looked great. And I just said, have you experienced something stressful recently? And she said, oh, about 2 years ago when the hair went gray, I had a cerebral hemorrhage. And I thought, okay, so cerebral hemorrhages.
That might explain it.
That explains it. So cerebral hemorrhages are related to cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease will sometimes manifest as gray hair. And that's why we need to pay attention. You know, everybody says, oh, I went to the doctor and I was a bit embarrassed, asked about my hair. Why am I losing color? And the doctor said, come on, just diet. But that's a bit like painting over, painting over the dashboard on your car. Would you really not want to know what's going on with your oil? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why I always say this is an indicator. And in the East, in countries like India, China, South Korea, Japan, they actually look at things like the hair, skin, and nails and the tongue to really understand what's going on in the person's body. And that's what I tell people to try and do. And that's why at 59, I don't dye my hair like you. Yeah. I don't have to, right?
Well, I dye my hair, but I don't like,
but you don't need to. You don't need to. Got it.
Yeah, right. I don't need to, because it'd be kind of like a light brown and then it would turn to blonde. But I don't have any gray hair at 56, which is kind of shocking. But it's amazing. I had a statement from somebody, for craft's sake, said, my hormone levels were tested and we're fine, but I'm still graying. But then again, I'm 50. And my brain automatically goes, that doesn't mean that it's inevitable that you're going to have gray hair. And that's still an indication that you might not be in optimal health. And where can we find to improve that? Does your brain go to that same place, Leslie?
So unfortunately, just as you mentioned that, the line cut out. Could you just repeat that first bit where she said she'd had her hormones checked and
my hormone levels were tested and were fine, but I'm still graying. But then again, I'm 50.
Well, so there could be other issues. You know, it could be, for instance, I would make sure that all of the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants are at that right level. In addition to B12 being important for preventing gray hair, B5, pantothenic acid, is very important as well. B6, B9 can be in addition. And the antioxidants, glutathione, is very important. But one of the other things, and this brings us back to spermidine, is that you do need to have, as we get older, our hair follicles tend to go into that telogen phase more and more. That's why women get thinning hair. And as they get older, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it can. And again, pigment is only produced in the growth phase of the hair follicle life cycle. So if that hair follicle is not there in that life cycle, that part of the life cycle, you're just not going to get pigment. Now we're going into summer now, and guess what? It's almost like our hair follicles wake up. A higher percentage of our hair follicles are going to go into that anagen state now that we're going spring and summer. But, if you live, yeah, but if you were living in a place where it is pretty horrible, again, you're not getting that signal for vitamin D, you're not going outside. And again, 90% of Americans, the average American spends 90% of their day indoors. The average Brit spends 92% of their day indoors. I would bet that there are more Brits with gray hair than there are Americans, just based on them being inside, right?
Wow.
So because we get these signals.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What I've noticed too is that as I've gotten older, the time of the growth phase has shortened. And with that time, I mean, I would say I am now, I'm pushing that in the opposite direction, because there was a time, I want to say 10 years ago, where my hair wasn't able to grow, like it would just break after a certain amount. And it is able now through a lot of different things that I'm doing, but this product as well, it's in the growth phase for longer. And if it's in the growth phase for longer, it has more opportunity to have that pigment added.
Exactly. Melanogenesis only happens in the growth phase. So you want to push those follicles into the growth phase as often as you can. So
interesting. That's so interesting.
The other thing about our particular spermidine is that it actually increases tyrosine, and tyrosine is needed together with iodine to make thyroid hormone. So for people who might be a little bit low, or who might be taking the iodine but not getting the tyrosine, you need the two together to build those hormones back. So this could be another reason why it helps with the pigment.
Interesting that you say that, because I am genetically slightly hypothyroid. You wouldn't know it.
You're in such great shape.
You wouldn't know it by looking at me, right? You wouldn't know it because I am slim. I do 99% of things right when it comes to my health. And I just gave up drinking, like, almost I want to say 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago. So now I'm like 99.7% of everything that I do is like
bravo.
But I do, we do have a genetic tendency for different things, and almost everybody in my family is hypothyroid. I'm so diligent about getting my blood work done, and I'm really in tune with how my body feels. So I can tell if my hands and feet are cold, if my thyroid's a little bit
Classic sign.
But what I have noticed in taking this, and I've been taking this now for, I want to say, over a year.
Woohoo.
Yeah. And what I've noticed is that when during those times, like midday, when my hands and feet would have gotten cold, that's no longer happening.
Interesting. So this is probably the reason why your body has now got the raw materials to make thyroid hormone, just that little bit extra to prevent the cold hands and feet from coming on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. Okay, so who would not? So this is your product. This is Primeadine. This is Spermidine by Oxford Healthspan. Who would not be able to take this? And by the way, for all of you guys listening, if you want a link to this product with a discount, just don't do it here. But when I post this to my main feed, and Leslie, I'll add you as a collaborator if you'd like me to add you as a collaborator, because there's going to be a lot of questions here. I just know it. So it would be helpful if you were a collaborator on this.
Sure.
Well, if you just comment, once I post this to the main feed, just comment the word Prime, Prime, and you will get, because I didn't want it in case somebody misspelled it, just comment the word Prime. It will give you a link to the product at a discount in your DMs. So just on the comment, not here, but on the comment, once I post it to my main feed, just in that comment section, comment Prime, and you'll get the link. Okay, so who cannot use this?
Okay. So spermidine is useful for everyone. However, in these food-derived supplements that I and my company, my team at Oxford Healthspan make, We have two types. We have one that is made from highly, that's the one that you're taking. It has spermidine, spermine, and putrescine. So all three polyamines in something called the polyamine recycling loop. If you are allergic to wheat, if you are sensitive, or if you are allergic to gluten, don't take it. It has a small amount of gluten, about the amount that you'd find in 1/100th of a slice of bread. So imagine taking a piece of toast, cutting it in 10 lines this way, 10 lines that way. It's a 1/100th. It's not a lot, but if you're celiac, you can't take Primeadine original. Then you would take Primeadine GF, which is gluten-free. That's the one that we source entirely in Okinawa. I have been to every farm involved in that. We have to specially commission a unique substrain of chlorella. I have to grow it in specially commissioned ponds under the sun. It's not grown indoors, it's grown outdoors. We then clean it, purify it, and we mix it with some Okinawan autumn turmeric and some Okinawan lime peel. That's because the lime peel has something called nobilitin and the turmeric has curcumin, and those both also activate autophagy. So that has 3 autophagy activators in it. And we've noticed people who take it say that it helps with athletic recovery. The Primeadine original, I would say people, their biggest comments are that it helps with, helps a lot with the hair growth, helps with the change in color. I would also say that
I want to ask you, is what I've noticed with this, and listen, I take a lot, I have to really kind of pick apart the things that I do to be able to kind of do these little experiments on myself at home, right? Because I have a collagen generator, a hair, skin, and nails from my Live Young line, so anybody could just DM me the word supplements or comment supplements, and I'll give you that link. So, but I had to stop taking my collagen generator, hair, skin, and nails to see how much of this was actually contributing to the length and strength of my nails. And I'm telling you, my nails have never been stronger, which is an indicator of what's happening internally, right? I was literally shocked.
We know that specifically ours increases keratin production. And that's obviously very important. We have some preliminary evidence that it helps with fibroblasts. Fibroblasts are those cells that lead to collagen generation. So it's very useful for this. So the outward benefits are people notice outwardly what's going on because they also notice the little baby hairs that come here in the corners. And they notice the strength in their nails or that they've got to clip their nails faster, but they also might notice that their sleep improves with their wearable trackers, and they notice sometimes that their mood improves. So I noticed there was a question about, does this help with brain health? Autophagy definitely helps with brain health because you've also got to clear the neurons. You know, you want to clean out what's going on in the brain.
Wait, you just broke up a little bit, so you broke up where it said this also attributes to brain health, because
it also helps with brain health. You want autophagy happening in the brain, not just in the heart or not just in, say, the bones. You want it systemically. You need it there, so you will feel it there. But the other interesting thing related to mood is that spermidine itself, when the body has to make it, it's like going to its own kitchen, and it says, all right, I'm going to take, like taking flour and baking powder, you're making something together. Well, to make spermidine, you need L-arginine, which is for blood flow, and you need something called S-adenosylmethionine, or SAMe. Now, SAMe is for good mood. So guess what? If your body says, I need autophagy to happen because I need to keep the heart cells going, so I'm going to take this SAMe, the person's going to be a little bit low, but I need this because if I don't get the heart working, this organism is going to die, right? Yeah. So basically, when you supplement, you are conserving your own body's store cupboards of SAMe. And that's why we get people who say, oh, you know, I just feel so calm. My mood is just so even. And well, that's essentially what it is.
Wow. So it works kind of as a mood stabilizer as well. What I realized in the sleep, when you mentioned sleep, because I wear an Aura ring, so I track
Yay.
my sleep. I track like, yeah, I'm all about it. I know that
You're
my
on
cold
it.
plunge tracks is like actually a workout. Like
Yeah.
I'm all over it. But what
Yeah.
I realized in taking this is that my deep sleep
Yeah.
is so much more. My deep sleep, like I forgot what the normal, the hour, however long we are supposed to, what the normal is for my age, and I am far exceeding
Yeah.
that. Like I'm in like the 95th percentile for
Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
sleep for my age.
So I think on the Aura ring, because I've got an Aura ring too, most people our age would get 45 to 60 minutes of deep sleep.
Yeah.
But, I've always gotten 90 to 120 minutes of deep sleep. Your body can do a lot more in that time, right? So we know that the glymphatic system in the brain operates then. That's when the different compartments in the brain shrink back and cerebral spinal fluid courses through like little rivers, taking away the waste. And the person who discovered this at the University of Rochester, she was at Cornell then, she also posits that that's when nutrients are taken to the brain at the same time. And that only happens during deep sleep.
And growth
So
factor is
growth
stimulated, right?
factor too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of that. So the last time when I checked my on my last night's deep sleep, I had an hour and 29 minutes.
Great. That's
That's
very
like,
good. You're well beyond the average for our age group. Well beyond. Yeah.
yeah, and all of that helps with age. Because like we said, everything is connected. Your sleep is connected with your stress. Your sleep is also connected with your choices that you're making and when you're sleep deprived, you're not reaching for like craving broccoli, right? When you're sleep deprived, you're
Yeah.
craving those
No,
cookies and
no.
carbs. So
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that, all of
100%.
that makes a difference. Okay, I'm going to read some of these questions.
Okay.
Because we had some questions that came in. Tell us while I'm looking for this, where can people find you?
You can go to Oxford Health Span. So span, like the span of a bridge, and all one word. So we've got a very active Instagram account. You can also go to, if you want to follow me, you can go to Leslie's New Prime. And I've got a YouTube channel. So all the gray hair stuff, go to the YouTube channel because most likely, I think I have about 95 videos there. Somebody has probably asked the question before and I've likely answered it.
Yeah.
There's also a free ebook there that you can download that talks about a lot of the things that I've mentioned already.
You're like the reverse, the gray hair reverse guru. Like you're the,
I'm the OG. I've seen other people do this. I think I'm the OG, on Instagram, not on Instagram, but on YouTube, who was saying, this can actually be reversed. You might not know this. And the only reason I said that, I started that channel during COVID and I would go on Zooms with my girlfriends and they were all like, how come you don't have the raccoon stripe? You found the only hairdresser in town who was going to dye your hair. And I was like, no, I didn't know you guys dyed your hair. I just thought, I had no idea. I have no patience to sit in a stylist chair to have my hair dyed.
right.
So,
but I also saw that reverse stripe where
yeah.
you see like, people that had all white hair,
Yeah.
all gray hair, all of a sudden their roots were coming in dark
Yes.
and then the gray was on the tips.
The end. Yeah, exactly. And that's really phenomenal. So the oldest person we've had that happen with was 79. And I always say, never give up on your body. If a 79-year-old was able to do this, then surely somebody who's 49 should be able to do it too. But you just need to remember, this is an indicator. This is like a little red flag saying, something's going on inside. Please pay attention.
Yeah.
You need to investigate. And we all have to be our own patient advocates with this, right? Yeah. We have to do some of the learning. And that's why people like you are so important, because as a gerontologist and as a health educator, you're there to teach people what they should be investigating, right? What they need to pay attention to.
And just not to accept what is like the norm.
Yeah.
It's normal to have gray hair in your 50s. maybe it's not. I mean, if you need to make sure that you're doing everything that you can. One of the questions is, I read that continued use of turmeric is bad for the liver,
Can
that you must take regular
Some
breaks. Can
people
you
are
comment
sensitive
on
to
this?
turmeric. Some people are sensitive to turmeric, but we have to think about cultures like in India, for instance, where they put turmeric in everything. They're getting turmeric practically every day, right? And those golden that golden milk that they drink, or in the curries. So I think that it's very dependent on your unique biology. We're obviously bio-individual, and you'll know if you're sensitive to it. I have definitely met individuals who are sensitive to too much turmeric. So if that's you, then Primeadine GF, you wouldn't want to take that. You'd want to try Primeadine Original instead, which doesn't have the turmeric. I think there was another question where somebody asked, can you take Primeadine Original, the wheat germ derived product, if you are gluten sensitive? I'm gluten sensitive. As part of my recovery from rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I don't eat gluten. As a rule, I don't eat gluten to this day. It's been like this for almost 20 years. However, I like the Primeadine Original product. I don't have a problem with it. And I was
Because
talking
it's
to
1/100th of a piece of bread. So you're looking at, I mean,
it's
very small.
Yeah, it's a small amount, but I was also talking to Dr. Tom O'Brien about this because he talks about the toll-like receptors that line the gut, how they are activated by gluten. And I said, is it possible that because spermidine is also an anti-inflammatory, is it possible that the anti-inflammatory benefits of spermidine outweigh the activation of those toll-like receptors? And he said, it's possible. So
Honestly, that makes scientific sense to me. You know, if you're decreasing inflammation, you're going to have less of a response on something that would normally cause inflammation in the body.
right.
Kind of balance
So
itself out.
so that's what I'm thinking. And my C-reactive protein, my HSCRP, keeps going down every year. I mean, my last HSCRP was 0.3. That's the same as like my 15-year-old daughter. So it's very low. My goal has always been to get it under 1, but it just keeps going down. So I'm sort of chuffed. I think it's got, I mean, for me, obviously I make this stuff, so you may be saying that I'm talking my own book, but I really do take this stuff.
Here's my next question. You make this stuff.
Yeah.
How much are you actually taking? Because are you following the directions, or are you just like, you're taking extra? I want to know.
So I do take extra. So I at nighttime, what I do is I take 2 Primeadine GF, because what I have noticed is that, especially with jet lag, it's great for jet lag, and it really helps promote deeper sleep at night. If you are okay with taking supplements on an empty stomach, you can do it this way. My caveat is, some people, and those of you who take vitamin B and feel nauseous afterwards, I'm talking to you. Primeadine GF has some naturally occurring B vitamins in it. If you take that product on an empty stomach and you feel sick, like you're going to throw up, you are one of these B vitamin sensitive people, and you can't take it without food. So, but for me, zero problem. I take 2 before I go to bed, and then I take probably double the original dose.
Yeah.
So I would take 6. I would take the powder from 6. So I just take it in powder form, because we also offer it in pouches. Yeah, exactly. So I just take my little spoon. I mix it with some magnesium, some L-theanine, and I mix it with water. I drink that down. I have, at the same time, I've got a tiny bit of melatonin, like, 0.5 milligrams, my progesterone, my astaxanthin, glutathione. That's what I'm having at night. And I sleep great.
And you sleep great. I have yet to try, you guys sent this to me, the powder form. I've yet to try it. But I have been taking, for, I want to say, a year, 3 of these a day, which is what it says.
You notice,
it says on the bottle, but now I know.
You can safely take up to 6 milligrams of food-derived spermidine. So there is a distinction between food-derived and synthetic. Let's think of Okay, so let's think of this as the powder derivative from oranges, and let's think about this synthetic as Tang, right? You and I grew up when the astronauts were taking Tang up, right? And it was like, yeah, let's all have Tang with our Hawaiian punch,
Yeah.
right? And now we look back and we think, oh my God, we had that with Pop-Tarts. What were we
What
thinking?
were we
It's so
thinking?
it's so
Pop
bad.
Tarts and
So
Tang. Oh
yeah,
my
exactly. Exactly. But this is, this is kind of the difference with the synthetic is that, yes, it chemically, it's what we call a molecular mimic. So it is a two-dimensional molecular mimic. And to understand this, think of your hands and think of some leather driving gloves. You put those leather gloves on and you put your hands up and they look like an identical mirror image, right?
Yeah.
But if you take the glove, that leather glove from the left hand and you try to put it on the right, it's just not going to fit properly. Right. And this is exactly the same with a synthetic chemical molecular mimic. And that is what synthetic spermidine is. And it's not been tested in humans. We don't know. Fortunately, we know from a study that was published in Nature at the end of last year that if you give too much synthetic spermidine to animals, you actually, in this case, it was female mice, you actually impair fertility. So we don't want that. And too much of it, too much of the synthetic, actually will be converted by the body into a toxin called acrolein. Do you know the train that was derailed, I think in Ohio, and there were toxic fumes coming out of it? All of those individuals who got lung toxicity or lung problems, that was due to acrolein. That's wow. So that just so that people have an idea of so what is acrolein? Well, that's what happens, and it leads to all sorts of problems within the body. The lung becoming much more sensitive is one of those side effects.
Wow. So is this possible then to get enough through natural food? I know, listen, I'm a big proponent of eat as many vegetables as you can. I eat as many vegetables as I can possibly consume for lunch.
I saw your plate and I was incredibly impressed, and I thought, I've got to follow you because you're really doing it right. You're a great mascot for all of us.
I'm walking the talk. That's
you are,
sure.
you are. And I try to do this. Obviously, I mentioned some of the statistics on Americans and Brits eating ultra-processed foods. 50% of all Brits are eating ultra-processed foods every single day. This was just published in the Financial Times a few days ago. And the Americans, actually, strangely enough, the Americans on the high end were worse, but on the low end were not quite as bad as we were. So there's a big disparity between healthy people and less healthy people in the US than there is in the UK. But what I will say is that, yes, if you can get it from your food, please do get it from your food. And some of the best sources would be things like shiitake mushrooms and fermented soybeans. There is a Japanese delicacy called natto, and it's fermented. It does not smell great. It does not taste great. It is their equivalent of Stilton cheese. Some people love it. Have you tried it?
I have. I lived in Singapore for about 6 years. So I traveled in Asia quite extensively, and I tried to,
to love it.
I tried so hard to love it, and it was really hard for me to tolerate.
It's got a strange mouthfeel too, and some people say it feels like eating, when you've been sick, because it's not appealing, and the spider webs off of it. If you can do it, though, if you grew up with it, like babies in Japan eat it, if you have grown up with it and you can do it, please, this is a great way to get it into your diet. And it is probably one of the secrets to why the Okinawans are among the longest lived in the world, right? That's a blue zone. And the Okinawan women are the longest lived women on the planet. But they ferment their natto for a year in limestone caves in Okinawa. It's a bit different from the rest of Japan. They ferment it for longer. So you can also get spermidine in any of your fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut,
which is great for your
everything.
microbiome.
If you do not have a problem with the histamine load.
Yeah.
So
We,
some people are allergic, have a problem with these fermented vegetables because of the histamine.
Interesting. Okay, I have a question here that says, in the last 10 years, I've noticed I'm losing pigment in my legs. I tan very easily, but now it's very spotty. Is this a deficiency or loss of melanin?
Yes. So it's impaired melanogenesis, and there are scientific papers on this. So spermidine does help with that, and there is even a paper which says that for individuals with vitiligo, that spermidine as a possible therapeutic agent is something that should be investigated. I'm not saying it's a cure, but it's something that looks like it might be promising for those individuals. So vitiligo is where you have, actually it's an autoimmune disease, and the body actually attacks the melanin in the skin, and that's why you get this lack of pigmentation. Now it sounds like this individual it's not vitiligo, it sounds like it's just a little bit of spottiness. To even out that you can have hyperpigmentation or you can have hypopigmentation. To even out that melanin production, spermidine would help with that. And we've had people who've had melasma, and you can have melasma on the face, or you can have it on different parts of your body. We've had customers who said that they took this and they were very surprised because a patch of melasma, which they've had since pregnancy, finally went away.
Wow.
And so that's actually quite helpful in that respect, and that's probably the autophagy as well, helping with the function of those cells and getting rid of that excess pigment too.
Yeah. So now we know it can help with pigment. It can help with the pigment in the hair,
Yeah.
hair growth, hormone regulation, lifting mood, autophagy, which is associated with a lot of different things, even, cognitive decline, not having autophagy in the brain to be, Alzheimer's and dementia, all that stuff can be related. Somebody asked, can you show the bottle again? So this is the original, and this is, there's this 3 a day, and there's 90 total. You guys can just comment when we post this to the main feed, and I'm going to invite Leslie as a collaborator. In the comment section, just put the word Prime, and it will give you the link, a discount link. So this is the original one, and then there's a gluten-free. We did have a comment or a question saying, if you don't have celiac disease or you're not gluten sensitive, is there any other, I forgot exactly how they worded the question, is there any other reason why you should be taking the gluten-free versus the original? And if all things were equal, is the original better?
I have a preference for the original, personally, and the reason why is because it has all 3 of the polyamines. Polyamine is just a fancy word for a protein that's made of amino acids, right? And collagen is an amino acid, so nothing to be afraid of. So these 3 polyamines, spermidine, spermine, and putrescine, are part of what we call a recycling loop or a salvage pathway. You know how the body tightly conserves everything in it. So if too much spermidine, you can convert some of it into spermine. If you have too much putrescine, you can convert it into spermidine. So once you have all 3 there, they can kind of interchange. It's like having a bit of a Swiss Army knife. You can use each one to do something else, and I think that's actually very helpful. The original also has a prebiotic fiber, which helps feed 2 of the strains of bacteria in the gut that make spermidine for you. So I didn't mention this before, but when we're young, we make spermidine in our tissues, in our gut biome, and then we get it from our food. And we should never forget that production in our gut biome. So as long as the gut biome is healthy, then we want to feed prebiotic fibers to the gut bacteria that can make spermidine. I will just caveat this with one thing. People who have leaky gut or SIBO, they probably notice that when they eat vegetable plants of any kind, that fiber makes them windy and bloated.
I have clients.
So this prebiotic fiber could do the same thing. So if you've got leaky gut or SIBO, better to do Primeadine
Oh,
GF. But
oh,
if
that's
you,
interesting. So if you have leaky gut, if you get bloated right after you eat,
yeah,
by the way, if you get bloated right after you eat, please DM me supplements. I've got stuff for
oh,
that
great,
called EC Digest.
great.
But so if you have any sort of leaky gut, you want to do the gluten-free one.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah,
I have a
because the prebiotic
question.
will be a problem.
Okay, I have a question that says, how long usually do you need to take the supplement with Primeadine before you start seeing gray hair reversal results? Also,
So
can you take it all year long, or do you recommend taking breaks? Great question.
Um, so what I would say is if you want to take breaks, then you could, but I would try to still maintain, actually increase the amount of spermidine you get from food,
Yeah.
right? You
I
can
don't
take
take breaks.
breaks and,
Yeah.
okay, I don't take breaks either, but I understand that for some people, especially with budgetary constraints, that they need to do this. For them, I would say then really focus on getting high sources of plant spermidine, right, in your diet. With
Shiitake mushrooms and
shiitake
fermented
mushrooms, fermented foods, legumes of any
legumes.
kind. I talked about the fermented soy, but legumes. And I know a lot of people have demonized legumes, but legumes and peas, you know, turns out that the Scots had it right. They have their Scottish salmon and their mushy peas, and the mushy peas will be full of the spermidine, and the salmon will be full of omega-3s. Yeah.
It's going to sound insane, but oftentimes as a snack and sometimes just like for lunch, sometimes
Yeah.
I will take a bag of organic green
Yep.
peas and just steam those or boil those and have like an entire cup of green peas, little
Yep.
salt and pepper,
Yep.
little cashew vegan butter on it.
Yep.
It's
That's
delicious.
perfect. That sounds like the healthy version, healthy organic version, Californian version of Scottish mushy peas. And that's
right.
really good for you. Mung beans, you know, those sprouts. You
Oh
can
yeah.
get sprouts, right? And sprouts are fantastic. I put a little olive oil, a bit of, you know, good Okinawan salt on there. Fantastic, great snack, and full of spermidine as well. Now, with regard to the question about how long do you need to take this, the problem is that, again, we're each different, right? It's almost like saying, you know, how much oil do I need to put in the car before the dipstick says that I'm tanked up? Do you know, every car is different. Every person is different. It kind of depends on how depleted you are.
Yeah.
And please bear in mind that because spermidine has these pleiotropic effects, can benefit so many different parts of the body, your body is going to make a very wise decision. It's going to say, oh, spermidine, right, we need it for the heart. It's going to top up for the heart, for the brain, for the bones, for the skin. If you've had an operation recently, it's, you know, seems to be helpful with wound healing. It's going to go there. The hair is going to be the last place. Why? Because this is not necessary for the survival of the species, right? And you know, mothers who are breastfeeding, guess what? Again, the body makes a very wise decision. The mother doesn't get the spermidine. The baby gets it. We'll always prioritize the next generation of the species. And that's why women notice their hair gets thin, falls out. Some women go gray after pregnancy. It's due to low spermidine and low thyroid hormone. So
I can tell you for me, I noticed a difference in my sleep. I don't want to say almost immediately, but almost immediately
yeah.
with the deeper sleep. And then with the nails, I take a lot of hair, skin, and nail stuff from collagen to my collagen generator. To, you know,
Yep.
there's a lot going on with what I
Yeah.
do. But I definitely noticed a giant difference in the strength of my nails, and it took about 1 month for that to happen.
I'd say people notice that their nails grow faster, probably within the first 2 to 3 weeks. The strength they notice coming through around the time that you did. It kind of, again, it depends on how depleted their store cupboards are, right? Yeah. So, so they should notice that. With the Oura Ring, we've certainly had people who say, oh, I took it and I can see it. I can see the jump in my deep sleep, like the next day.
Same.
So
I saw the jump in my deep sleep and I was shocked, and I thought, like, and of course, you know, being like science oriented, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop taking this for 2 weeks. And I'm going to track and see what happens. And then I'm going to take it again. And I did all of that stuff. And then I'm going to take it again and see what happens. And sure enough, my deep sleep increased. And that for me, that's already reversing or slowing down the aging process just by getting that extra deep sleep, because of all the growth factor that happens and all of the choices and how everything is so connected, how that really affects every part of our body.
Absolutely. One thing I'll tell you is that if you have been, because you've been taking it consistently for a number of months, you could take it's about a 2-week window. You could probably take a 2-week break, and you would probably see your sleep results sustained for about 10 to 14 days. But your body will then be working through the stores of spermidine until it doesn't have more, and then you need to top up again. But we've had other people do that experiment, and I found it so interesting that you could maintain it for about that period of time.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, we're going to get off here, but it has been so enlightening. I definitely want to have you back on here, Leslie.
Would love to.
For those of you guys, you can find Leslie. Tell us where they can find you again, and then we'll wrap up here, and I'll tell them where to find this.
Okay, so Oxford Health Span, all one word, and then Leslie's, Leslie, Leslie's New Prime. That's on YouTube and Instagram, and then a passion project of mine is the Oxford Longevity Project here in Oxford. We've got a big summit coming up the end of the month. We've also just conducted a 25-country survey on attitudes towards aging, and did that with the Round Glass Foundation in Washington State. That is done together with healthcare entrepreneur Sunny Singh. And we'll be announcing the results of that at Rhodes House on the 28th of June. And then we've got the summit the next day with some absolutely fantastic speakers from the University of Oxford. Also, Sandra Kaufman, Dr. Sandra Kaufman, Miami, anti-aging doctor. We'll all be talking about how everyday people can empower themselves with the knowledge to reverse age themselves by 10 years using the latest scientific breakthroughs, whether it's autophagy or things we've learned from work at the International Space Station, because we've also got somebody who runs the Oxford the UK's only space innovation lab will also be there too. So that's a lot. Oxford Longevity Project, Leslie's New Prime, and Oxford Health Span.
And I want to have you back on to talk about more about that longevity project, because that's pretty amazing. I had one question come up, and I'm going to have Leslie answer it now. Another question is, how expensive is it, and how big is the discount? Well, what is the price of this for a 1-month supply? And then I'll tell people how to find it.
So I think in the US, I think it's either 61 or 64 US dollars a month. And that is, so if you subscribe, there's a 25% discount. If you get it at the normal price, I believe it's 90 US dollars. And then you've got a discount code, which I think brings it down by 15%. So 90 minus, so 15, I was like, let's see, 9, and then it's half of that. Well, you know, you can do the math, but basically it's subscription price is the lowest price. But if you just want to try 1 month and not be obligated, you should use Darnell's code, and you'll be able to try it that way.
That will be automatically sent to you when I post this to my main feed. Just comment Prime, PRIME, and that link will be sent to your DM. Leslie, thank you so much. So much.
Loved it.
I appreciate it. I'll have you back on again. Have a great rest of your day.
Great fun.
Bye, everybody.
Likewise. Great Saturday, everybody.